talk about a few things that you might need to know before moving to Houston. Before we get started with this list, if you will do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, like, turn on your notifications as well. New content comes out weekly. We have a podcast. We have plenty of things that you can tune into to learn about the greater Houston real estate market and Houston in general. We're all about it, so let's talk about it. Number one, summers. I've lived in Houston for about 14 years now. Summers are absolutely unbearable pretty much through July to August. If you move in those months, hire a mover because it is too hot. It gets to 103 degrees. Moving here to Texas, it is humid and it is hot for pretty much 3 months straight, from June to August, but June is not as hot. July and August are absolutely miserable. Number two is hurricanes. Hurricanes are crazy here. I moved here right after Ike had hit in 2008, but in 2016, we experienced Hurricane Harvey, and it is a nightmare to deal with when a hurricane is barreling down over the city and sits on you for 3 days. Certain parts of the greater Houston area are less susceptible to flooding, and things are better off now with public works really taking care of fixing up the canals and roads and drainage and things like that. And note that if you're moving to Houston, you should be prepared for hurricanes, even if it's something that maybe isn't going to happen to you. It may happen to someone you know, and it's definitely something you should prepare for. Number three is the traffic. Houston is a metro area, which means we have all kinds of suburbs outside of Houston. Houston is actually divided by, I like to say, the inner loop, the Beltway, 99, and then there's just like rural and things like that outside of that. If you go from Katy to Houston in non-traffic hours, it's like a 30-minute drive, and it's pretty straightforward. When we're talking about getting anywhere inside of Houston, from anywhere inside of Houston, it can be longer, especially in the 610 corridor and the Galleria. There's a huge congestion of traffic that just sits there. They're always doing construction. There's a large chance that you're going to run into traffic. I always recommend to our clients, if you work downtown or you work in the Galleria or things like that, you should just plan for an extra 30 minutes to your day of drive time, unless, now this is kind of a pain in the butt, this is number four, you're using tolls. There's a ton of toll roads across the greater Houston area. I am not the biggest fan of toll roads, but they do help us get where we need to go a lot quicker. Certain toll roads, like I talked about, 99 is actually a toll road that goes around pretty much the large outskirts, goes into Katy, goes to Splendora. You can get up into the northeast quadrant of Houston that way. You can also take 99 all the way down south into past Sugarland, Rosenberg area. It cuts off there. It hasn't gone all the way through. Something to be aware of is that while it is a blessing, it's also a curse. And it's something you need to know about before moving to Houston, because toll roads can get expensive. If you're coming to Houston, you're going to be driving into work or driving to any location from outside of Houston. You may be using the toll roads, and that can get pretty expensive. Number five, mosquitoes are a real thing. Bugs are a real thing. Critters are number five. Something of note is that Houston still has a ton of trees. That is something that is great about the greater Houston area. There is a ton of trees still, and that's going to create problems, right? You're going to run into more spiders, more mosquitoes. Mosquitoes like to hang out near water, so you're going to run into mosquitoes pretty regularly. We have our citronella candles outside. We call them tiki torches here. I'm sure you do wherever you're from. We have our tiki torches on our patio. It's just something that we're accustomed to by now after 14 years being here. I'm pretty used to it, so I don't worry about it. You should know that it can get pretty annoying. And you're also dealing with cicadas, which we joke as Texans that is the state animal. If you've never seen a cicada before, Google it. I promise you're not going to be disappointed. Also, just critters in general. You deal with a lot more tarantulas and spiders and mice and just other rodents that can get into the house and creep into your attic more often here because of the inclement weather. It's really hot, so they want to find somewhere cool, or when it's really cold in those 3 months out of the year, which we literally just got out of, you're going to see that more often. The critters are going to want to find some place to hide. More often than not, it's in your attic or in your house. Number six, we're talking about cars. Now, growing up in the Bay Area, I remember having the ability to just roll windows down. It was 70 degrees year round. You didn't have to worry about air conditioning in your vehicle. You could drive around what we called a beater. You can't do that in Houston. You need to have AC because it's warm year round. One of the things about Houston is that the automobile industry is actually one of the thriving parts of the economy. However, that means that people who move to Houston, you're going to save money on your house, but you're going to spend more money to get a newer vehicle so you can have AC and heat and things like that in your car. So let's talk about probably the most important thing in my realm as a real estate professional is the property taxes. Now, if you're from California like me, or if you're from a different state where maybe they have a state income tax and you're thinking, I'm going to move to a place where there is no state income tax, but you come here and you're like, why do my payments look similar on a $350,000 house compared to a $500,000 or $600,000 house? That's because of property tax. So in the state of Texas, most communities, when they're built, will borrow money from municipalities locally and other entities to put together the community. Now what that means is that you're going to have a property tax rate, which will include the school district, it'll include the municipality district, it will include that in your payment. So you'll notice that sometimes, especially in my community, I'm in a new build community, my tax rate was 3.7 when I moved in on a $200,000 house. Now it's 3.5 and trending downward, but it takes years to get that to a lower number. So it's something you need to be aware of when you're moving here. You're like, I'm going to save money on my house. In theory, you are, but your property taxes are going to be a lot higher. And that's just not on homes. That's also on land. If you're just buying land out here to put your money into something, you're still going to pay property taxes. Now, we've noticed that a trend is that property taxes are lower on land, right? Because most of the time you're buying land where there's no schools nearby and things like that. But sometimes it can still be pretty high depending on the cost of the land. Number 8, the beaches suck. If you are from the West Coast or the East Coast, you will notice that the beaches here are pretty bad commercially. Galveston is a tourist attraction and they don't have the best beaches. You can go an hour north or an hour south of Galveston and get to some nicer beaches that will absolutely blow your mind, and they're gorgeous. There's great short-term rentals on those, and I would also highly recommend investing in those short-term rentals on that. But the beaches here are pretty bad. I do not like going to Galveston with friends or family because it's not a good representation of a good beach. If my friends from Southern California come out here, they're gonna say, let's go to the beach. I'm gonna say, let's go to Southern California, because unfortunately, Galveston's waters are murky. It just doesn't look great. Pleasure Pier is a great aspect of why I would go to Galveston. They also have great restaurants, and there's a lot of cool things you can do in Galveston, including Moody Gardens. But I would not recommend moving to Galveston because of the beach. If you think that that's a good idea, I just wouldn't do it. Number 9, there is no small town feel inside of Houston. Now, what I mean by that is that if you were moving from, let's say, Montana or Colorado or somewhere where you're used to a small town, that's not going to be the case here. You are going to be running into a large metropolitan area. Now, we are the 4th most populous city in the country, so it's something to consider. If you don't want to move to a large city, Houston is not for you. Now, that being said, outside of Houston, there are plenty of areas that I would recommend moving into. Montgomery, Magnolia, Conroe, those are places that I would recommend moving to if you want more of a small town feel. Sealy, Brookshire, Waller, these are places that I would move to. Hempstead. Those are all places that are going to give you a small town feel in a large metropolitan area, and most of those places that I mentioned are less than an hour's drive to downtown. So I highly recommend you take a look at that. But if you're looking to move to Houston for a small town feel, you're not going to get it here. Last but not least, if we're talking about you moving here, this might deter you from moving here. Everyone's moving here. We are in a huge metropolitan area, and we are at a point where everyone is moving here from California, from Florida. Part of it is a socioeconomic political landscape. We have many people who are looking to move from California because of cost of living and home prices. We have people moving from Florida for kind of the same thing, but everyone is kind of converging on Houston. And if you're looking to move to Houston because you want to get away from certain things and certain people and large groups of people, you're not going to get that here, because this metropolitan area is growing, it's continuing to grow, and it's a huge melting pot of cultures and people. So it's going to continue to grow, and it's not stopping anytime soon. So that being said, if you're looking to move to the greater Houston area and you're like, hey, those 10 things don't bother me, I absolutely want to move here, we are here at your service. Selling with the Snyder Group is a full-service real estate team in the greater Houston area. We're happy to help you move here, get you connected with us. And we'd also love to talk to you about your real estate needs and goals and investing goals. That's something not a lot of people talk about. Why I moved to Houston? Because it's a great place to invest in real estate. So that being said, if you have any questions about moving to Houston or moving to anywhere outside of Houston, be happy to help. Feel free to contact us below. And again, feel free to like and subscribe, turn that notification button on. That way we can continue to give you great content. We'll see you next time.